If you ever feel out of control around food, you're not alone, and you're in the right place to learn practical, no-nonsense information about why you binge and how to stop. Binge eating does not mean that something is wrong with you. It's a natural but primitive brain response that you can correct. If you're ready for change, sign up for the Brain Over Binge self-paced online course for less than $20 per month. And if you feel you need personalized support, we also offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching. To learn more, go to brainoverbinge.com/subscribe. And I hope you enjoy the show. This is the Brain Over Binge podcast, where you learn a simple, brain-based approach to ending binge eating. I'm your host, Kathryn Hansen. I'm the author of the books Brain Over Binge and the Brain Over Binge Recovery Guide. My goal in this podcast is to help you achieve freedom from binge eating. In this episode, I'm going to talk about one thing that may be preventing you from achieving that freedom and how to overcome it. Today I will address one last time thoughts, and I'll explain what that means, why it holds you back, and what to do about it. Listen to this scenario and see if it sounds familiar to you. You decide you want to stop binge eating. You create a plan for yourself. You may have someone to support you in the form of a friend or a mentor or a coach or a therapist. You may be doing very well. You may be eating enough food so that you're no longer in that survival state. You may be also doing very well dismissing the urges. But then, you have an urge that feels stronger and more compelling than usual. You start having thoughts of all the reasons that you should binge. And you are actually able to see those thoughts as neurological junk, like you've been learning in this podcast. You fully realize those thoughts are from your lower brain, and that you do not have to react to them or act on them. But then another thought comes up that says, just one last time. And in that moment, it sounds very logical. It sounds believable. You may hear thoughts that say, you'll be better able to quit tomorrow, and all the reasons why tomorrow will be better, and why it will be a better time to quit than today. In that moment that you have the one last time thought, you may lose the separation of your lower brain and your higher brain, and you may start to think it makes sense to binge. So you resolve to quit the next day, and you follow that one last time thought. You may find this happens prior to a big day like a birthday, or New Year's, or even before the start of a new month or a new week. If this is the case for you, I want you to know that you're definitely not alone in this. I think that the one last time thoughts are one of the most common tipping points that leads you from successfully dismissing the urge to following it. And when you follow it, you always regret it afterward. I'll bet there's never been a time that you've thought, wow, I'm really glad I binged that one last time. It always brings you pain, and you always wish you had not done it. This cycle will keep repeating. I know it did for me. I had one last time thoughts before most of my binges. And because I didn't understand it, I believed it, and I followed it, so that these last binges were never actually my last binges. To stop binge eating, it's important not only to understand these one last time thoughts, but to know how to deal with them as well. First, please know that it's extremely common for this to happen, like I mentioned, and not only for binge eaters. This one last time mentality comes up with anyone who has a destructive habit or addiction of any kind. The fact that it comes up in almost everyone across the board who has a destructive habit can immediately make it feel much less personal and much less meaningful. It's not that you truly want to binge one last time. It's that this one last time mentality is just something that our lower brains automatically produce when we have a destructive habit. I want you to think about all the times you've thought just one last time. You truly believed it in the moment, but then the next time you had an urge to binge, the thought came up again, and you believed it again. What if you stopped believing this thought? What if you instead realized that the one last time mentality is a reaction of the primitive part of your brain, with the goal of getting what it wants right now? The lower brain is not concerned with your long-term goals, or even what you'll do tomorrow. Its job is only to get you to binge right now. And the one last time thought is an extremely effective way that it does that. The lower brain thinks that you need binge eating to survive. So when it produces this thought and you follow it, it will keep producing it again. I want you to recognize that if you keep believing this one last time thought, it's just going to keep coming over and over again. It will continue encouraging you to put off quitting the habit indefinitely. It will always tell you why tomorrow or next week or next month will somehow be a better time to quit. If you've acted on thoughts like this in the past, it's perfectly okay. We all have. You haven't failed for doing this. I only want you to now start being aware of it. I want you to challenge yourself to notice what your lower brain is doing and to respond to it differently. Try to notice when your lower brain says one last time. You don't have to argue with the thought. Just recognize it in that moment. Just seeing it for what it is can immediately give it less power. See if you can experience these thoughts without immediately believing them. See if you can see these thoughts as just more neurological junk. Also, remembering that everyone who's trying to quit binge eating or any other destructive habit is likely having the same or very similar thoughts makes those thoughts seem like something universal that the lower brain does, rather than something specific to you and something that is very valuable and meaningful to you personally. It just makes it less believable. As you know, the urges to binge are the one and only direct cause of binge eating. Urges to binge include any thought, any feeling, or any physical sensation that encourage binge eating. One last time thoughts are thoughts that encourage binge eating. So they're part of the urge to binge. The one last time thoughts are not your true thoughts. They're lower brain thoughts, produced automatically as part of the urge. It doesn't matter the content of the thoughts of the urge. What matters is those thoughts are encouraging you to binge. So any thought that encourages you to binge should be dismissed, and that also includes one last time thoughts. Another aspect of this one last time mentality is a resolution to quit in the more distant future. I remember that in December, when I used to binge, I'd always resolved that New Year's would bring a binge-free me. But looking back, my resolutions only served as excuses to binge prior to the resolution's start date. It was as if the resolution allowed me to just follow my urges without even trying to avoid binging. My higher brain would just go along with my lower brain without even trying to stop. But the problem was when the date that I promised to quit actually arrived, I still had urges to binge. And then another quit date would come to mind, and I would start thinking, well, maybe next week would be a better time, or next month. And the cycle just kept going. I want you to start to see this, that it's a repeating pattern, and the brain loves patterns, and until you break this pattern and stop believing those thoughts, it's just going to keep coming up. Even if at one time your resolutions felt fully rational, like they were coming from the higher brain, once this pattern repeats a few times, it definitely becomes part of the habit and becomes very automatic. So it doesn't matter whether or not at one point it felt like it was actually you that was resolving to quit. Now it's just all part of the same habit. The lower brain has no regard for time or for your long-term goals. Its focus is on immediate pleasure and survival, and it will automatically demand binges no matter what day, week, month, or year it is. That is, until you decondition this habit. If you can recognize the one last time thoughts as faulty messages from your lower brain and give them no value and no attention, it will take you a long way toward deconditioning the habit, and the urges to binge will fade away. So there's really nothing special you have to do about one last time thoughts. You just need to see them as the neurological junk that they are, and see that these thoughts are not actually you, because you don't want to binge one last time. You want to quit today. You want to quit this week. You want to quit this year. You don't want to wait any longer. This habit is causing you pain in your life. And when you can stop believing that tomorrow will be better, that the next day will be better, and you can start believing that you deserve to be binge-free today, that's when you take a big step forward in recovery. So next time you have a one last time thought, I want you to treat it the same way that you would treat any other thought encouraging binge eating. Don't give it any more value or meaning or attention. because you know you want to be binge-free right now and at every moment of your life. That's all for today's show. I hope it's helped you see that the one last time thoughts are neurological junk from the lower brain. And I hope the next time you have those thoughts, you'll be able to recognize it and avoid acting on it. Over time, those thoughts and all the thoughts that encourage binge eating will fade away. If you want to learn more about the Brain Over Binge approach, you can click on the link in the show notes to sign up, and you'll get a copy of my free ebook. Also, when you sign up, you'll receive a monthly newsletter from me on the first of every month. That newsletter includes a blog post and other resources to help you in recovery, as well as information about any upcoming groups that I'm doing. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you'll join me again next time. No matter where you are in your recovery, I want to encourage you and remind you that you have the power to change your brain and live a binge-free life. The Brain Over Binge podcast is produced and recorded by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC. All work is copyrighted by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC, and all rights are reserved. As a disclaimer, the hosts of the Brain Over Binge podcast are not professional counselors or licensed healthcare providers, and this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice or any form of professional therapy. Eating disorders can have serious health consequences, and you are strongly advised to seek medical attention for matters relating to your health. Please get help when you need it, and good luck on your journey. Need more help? You can find all of our current and upcoming options for support at brainoverbinge.com.